Hello, 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 and welcome back to Rhetoric with Shakia. I'm Shakia, and in this episode, we are going to talk about Love Island USA Season 7, Episode 28. Finally, we get an episode that represents, that highlights what Love Island is about. This felt like a Love Island episode. And when I say that, I mean because I'm a little new. I'm newer to the Love Island game. However, I did see episodes from previous seasons, and this felt like a real Love Island episode. And it gave us a little bit of this, a little bit of that, with polls and plot twists, redemption arcs, and a speakeasy kiss that even had me blushing. All right, let's get into it. This episode opens with all of the couples and islanders, because some people are not in a couple, processing the results from the polls, processing what America feels about them. But let me be clear. I think some of these polls were a bit skewed. I did not agree with all of the results, but let's talk a little bit about it. So Clark and Shelley were ranked really low in a lot of the polls, and so was Taylor and Ace. I know a lot of people have issues with Ace, and I don't understand why there is so much hate against this young man. I think it is because he's a leader and people feel he might be trying to manipulate or sway the game in his direction. Is he not playing Love Island? I think Ace is doing what needs to be done. Now, do I agree with everything he does and how he goes about it? No. But for the most part, he explores the connections. He has a solid, well, we'll talk about it because we know that they had a little obstacle, he and Shelley. But for the most part, he had a solid connection with Shelley. And he is he's participating in the challenges and whatnot. I don't know why so many people dislike him. I don't dislike him. I actually want he and Shelley to win, or make it at least to the finals, whatever we're calling it. So the polls, let's talk a little bit about the polls. We, the viewers, were asked several questions if you downloaded the app. Can I tell y'all, don't judge me, okay? But maybe you will, and that's fine too. I downloaded that app, and I was like, I'm not downloading another app. I'm not voting in any of this. And yet, what did I do? I found myself downloading this app and voting in these polls. When I tell you this show has me in a chokehold, and I don't know why. It's a great form of escapism, okay? There were different categories, most to least genuine, the couples that you would want a vacation with, things like that. Who's most trustworthy? And they ranked Amaya, let me not say they, Amaya was ranked really high for a number of these categories. And so was Iris, and so were a few of the Casa girls, which I thought was interesting because to me, Jaden and Grayson didn't really get much screen time. So I didn't know why or how they were voted so favorably. That part didn't make sense to me. And they voted Shelley not least genuine, but she was right before the very last. She was right before Clark. Okay, Taylor was also voted least in a lot of these polls. That was not surprising, honestly. And so during this episode, the couples are processing the results. So as Taylor and Clark are talking, both of them seem to believe that the reason why Taylor, and Clark is also including herself, why they were voted so low is because Taylor chose Clark instead of Alandria. Taylor, specifically for you, not so much for Clark, but specifically for you, you were voted low, or the least this, the least that, the bop, 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 because of how you went about everything with Alandria, how you treated Alandria. From what was aired, what we as the viewers got to watch, that's why you were voted that way, not because you chose Clark. I really want to make sure that part is clear, because a lot of folks seem to think, or they question, what's wrong with Taylor choosing Clark? Nothing. Nothing. If that's who he has a stronger connection with, there is absolutely nothing wrong with Taylor choosing Clark. It's just how he went about it. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm glancing at my notes. I'm trying my best to keep these short and concise because I am a talker. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, and then we also see Olandria talking with Iris about Ciara's decision to stand behind Taylor. Because what I forgot to mention was Taylor was at risk of being dumped from the island. This episode had a mass elimination, okay? Mass dumping. That sounds weird. Had a mass elimination. The people who were at risk of being eliminated included Taylor, TJ, Andrina, Grayson, and Jaden, I believe, and Austin. And the Islanders could only save one person. And so the Islanders had to go and stand behind the person that they wanted to save. Of course, Iris stood behind TJ. She was like sobbing the entire time. And Brian and Chris stood behind Jaden because we know that Brian had a thing for Jaden and Chris was supporting his boy Brian. And Olandria actually stood behind Austin, which I was a little surprised about. And she referred to him as bestie and whatnot. And he hugged her and thanked her for standing behind him, for supporting her. And then a few of the girls stood behind Andrina, including Shelly, Amaya, and somebody else. Maybe Huda? I'm not sure. And then several of the Islanders, including Nick, Ace, Pepe, and Ciara, they stood behind Taylor. And I believe Clark obviously also stood behind Taylor. So now fast forward to this episode, episode 28. Olandria said it felt like a dagger to the heart when Ciara stood behind Taylor because she's like, this is one of my besties in the house. Why would she do that? You know, she didn't. I'm adding that part. Ciara's reason for standing behind Taylor is because Nick stood behind Taylor. And she said, you know, Taylor is one of Nick's best friends. And I knew he would be so hurt if Taylor went home. And Olandria said, that's fine. And she continued to do what she was doing. And I don't blame her. Because really, you know, all the crap that she had gone through with this guy, him stringing her along and whatnot, and you have the nerve to stand behind him so that he stays in the villa? No, ma'am. Now, listen, Ciara is already in hot water in real life. Normally, I don't talk too much about what's going on in the real world when it comes to these shows, but Ciara, I'm not going to say accordingly because it looks like there's proof. It was on her social media account, one of the social media platforms. She has used racial slurs more than once, and she may get that producer tap, the same one that Yulissa got at the very beginning, which I always forget about Yulissa, honestly. The same one she got. Now, if she does not get that producer tap, if she is not dumped from the villa, I find that to be interesting. Because if you're going to take a stance about, you know, not allowing Islanders or contestants on the show who uses certain language or whatnot, why let Yulissa go but keep Ciara? Is it because we're so far into the season that they're going to pretend like they don't see it, even though I know they see it? So this will be interesting to see how this raggedy season pans out. But anyway, because I am jumping all around. Let's get back into this episode. But before I do get back into this episode, do you think Ciara should be dumped? Should she be dumped from the island for her social media post using racial slurs? Moving on, Shelly and Ace, they have a heart-to-heart. Finally, they are speaking to one another because, you know, they've been having issues since that whole heart rate challenge or whatever it's called. They've been having issues. They finally have a heart-to-heart. I think they have an understanding. Before Shelly and Ace have the heart to heart, you know, they always open with the breakfast scenes, right? Usually it's the guys cooking breakfast. They did not make pancakes. I think they had enough of pancakes and they made crepes. And Shelly went down to the kitchen and she made breakfast for Ace. And she and Ace were also talking about the results of the polls. And Shelly, in her confessional, she was like, I don't know what I did to America for these results. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But she was quite taken aback by it. And honestly, I was too. But that's a whole nother conversation we'll get into some other time. She was taken aback by the results, and Ace was also taken aback by the results. And so they were discussing it, and she said, as long as you know who I am. And he said, yeah, like, you know who you are, and I know who you are, and as long as you know who I am. So eventually, essentially, they're saying, yo, I see you, make sure you see me, we see each other up in this, okay? And eventually, Shelly says that she would like to be closed off. Finally, we have honesty with these two when it comes to closing off. Because at this point, that's what they ought to do. We are late in the season. You all have explored. You all tend to appear to have a strong connection with each other. Close off. Now, Ace, at least if he said it, I may have missed it. I didn't actually hear him agree, but he did say, give me a kiss. And so they kissed. I'm assuming that means they are closed off. Oh, and by the way, it was either this episode or episode 27 after TJ left and we see the Islanders get in bed because they all get into bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, etc. Pepe says to Iris, you want to sleep? You want to sleep here? Oh, Iris. So, Pepe absolutely has his eyes set on Iris. And later on in the episode, I guess a few of the other Islanders notice where his attention goes. And Olandria said, oh, Pepe has a type. Indeed, he does, Olandria. Indeed, he does. And all you have to do is fit that type, and Pepe will swoon all over you, okay? Which really is unfortunate because I wanted him to explore with Andrina. I thought that would have been really cute, but he does not. You know what? I'm going to stop there. We know what Pepe's type is. So fast forward to the challenge. They were involved in the crash out challenge. Okay. So now the Islanders are being rewarded for crashing out. Why change when we can turn this into an obstacle course of some sort? Okay, the challenge was fun and flirty. It was lighthearted. And I am glad that they got to experience this because for the last few days, it has been very heavy in the villa. Just as a viewer, it's been heavy. So I imagine what it's been like for them in the villa. And so they had this challenge. And you get to pick a wing person, and then you get to pick somebody to kiss. And guess who Nick chose as his wing woman? Olandria. He chose Ciara to kiss, of course, because they're in a couple and they're closed off. And Zach chose Olandria to kiss. Ace chose Shelly to kiss. And I think he chose, you know what? I'm blanking on who he chose as his wing guy. But Taylor chose Ace as his wing guy. And he said, because of those polls from last night or something like that between the two of them. And Brian chose Amaya to kiss in the challenge. And Elan and Pepe both chose Iris to kiss in the challenge. And later on in the episode, Iris lets us know in her confessional that she enjoyed her kiss with Pepe more than with Elan. What do you guys think about Elan? Do you think it's time for him to go? Is he actually making any connections? At this point, his strongest connection was Ciara because of Casa. But at this point, Ciara is closed off with Nick. And so I think that's done. He also said so they had to choose a moment where they crashed out and then they press a button and then they get pied in the face. He said the moment he crashed out was when he knew Nick was still in the villa. And Brian said he never crashes out. And Nick said that he crashed out when he thought he was leaving the villa. And so again, this was a cute, fun, and flirty challenge. And at some point during the episode, Amaya and Zach have a conversation. I thought they left off as friends, like, left off in a good place. She apologized for telling him to shut the F up in the previous episode, which I did not like. He was telling her that he felt uncomfortable when she wanted to kiss him when they were over at Casa. And she was like, "What, you weirdo? Shut the F up," and kind of shut down the conversation. And this is my issue with Amaya. When she is involved in these situations, she gets so wrapped up in her own emotions that sometimes she forgets the other person is there. And if he felt uncomfortable, he felt uncomfortable. He should be allowed to say, like, "Yo, actually, that felt like too much for me. It didn't feel quite natural." Now, granted, he did ask to kiss Olandria. So this is the Casa episode. And she was like, "Nah, she doesn't do that. And outside of challenges, she's a slow burn, blah, 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 slow burner, yada, yada, yada." So he was open to kissing Olandria, but he wasn't as open to kissing Amaya. And I wish he would have just said that, like, "You know what, not right now." He could have turned her down gently. But I do think it was messed up for Amaya to completely dismiss what he was saying. And so she did apologize for how she came off, and they were able to hug it out and whatnot. Here's the thing, we got to be careful because Amaya was ranked so favorably in most of those polls by America that now a lot of these guys have their eyes set on her. We have to make sure that it is genuine. I mean, obviously, I want all the connections to be genuine. I just think it could be real easy for somebody to pretend they have all this interest in her when they don't, but they feel that by coupling up with her, they can win some money. And that's not okay. Speaking of Amaya, later on in the episode, she has on her little muumuu. So this is after the challenge. They get back to the villa, they clean themselves up, and they break off and they have these different conversations with folk. They have these chats. So she and Brian have a chat in the speakeasy and they're talking and she's laughing and giggling and she's like, "You got me blushing." Because he's like, "What's so funny? Why do you keep laughing?" And of course, Amaya is carrying the conversation. Funny enough, at some point during the episode, a little earlier, I believe in the episode, the guys are talking and Chris was saying to Brian, with Amaya, you never have to worry about running out of things to say because, she's a talker. And Chris, during a previous episode, was saying how his connection with Andrina was kind of fizzing out. The conversations were boring. And so Chris is like, "Well, you're not going to have that problem now." And so fast forward to Brian and Amaya in the speakeasy. And I'm like, yeah, this girl is just chatting it up, but I'm not mad at her. She was having a genuine moment, a genuine connection with somebody, and I am here for it. So while they're chatting with her muumuu on, he looks and he looks at her and he says, "Come here." "Oh, okay, Brian." And she does, and they start to kiss and make out, and now she's sitting on him, and he's like, "You look pretty tonight," and she's like, "In my grandma dress." "Girl, you know what you were doing with that muumuu, okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, I was watching and how the things moving up in that dress and yada yada yada." So they had a cute little moment and the speakeasy. I'm actually here for Brian and Amaya. I think that could be a good look, even though even though we have like a week left. We have a week left, people. But that's neither here nor there. We will see how this all plays out. Okay, let's talk about Chris and Huda. So I'm kind of jumping around, not going through the episode in order, more so with the couples. Chris and Huda, during breakfast, they're talking, and Chris opens up to Huda about feeling torn between his love for basketball and wanting something else, right? He said he wanted to get involved in other things, and he said he had a dream, and whenever he has that dream, he had a dream about basketball. And whenever he dreams about basketball, it brings up certain things for him, and he's questioning certain things. And what he said was the reality is he'll be away playing ball overseas for 6 to 9 months. And he said, while I'm doing that, it's hard for me to pour into anything else. It's hard to give anything else his attention. And I'm like, is Huda hearing this? Because to me, it sounds like he's saying, "Look, I don't really know what's up with you and I after this is over. Because she can't just pick up and go overseas with him. She has a daughter. And so Huda is talking to him, and in that clip, she sounds supportive, and she's like, "Well, no, if this is what you love, you figure it out," and bop 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 bop. And I'm like, this is one heck of a redemption story from the crash out queen. And so she can get a redemption story. Then they need to make sure other folk can get one too, like my girls Olandria and Shelly, because the way that these last few episodes, I didn't like. Oh man, it was just so much. It was a lot, and a lot of people were coming for them and calling them names and whatnot, and I just don't like it. But anyway, because I talked about it in my last video, so it does look like Huda and Chris are moving in the direction of closing off. But I do wonder if he wanted Huda to read between the lines of what he was saying. And in that case, Chris, let's just be upfront. Let's be direct. Tell her what it is. Be honest with her. Later on in the episode, we do see Chris and Shelly have a conversation. This is after the challenge. They have a conversation and they wanted to clear the air. And what they both discovered was perception. He thought that she kind of had closed herself off, and he said, I can see how Ace was comforting you and whatnot. And it sounded as if miscommunication. And Shelly said, wow, it's all about perception. Had we just talked, maybe we would have been on a different page. But they leave things where they are. She's going to continue to be in her couple with Ace, and he is going to continue to be in his couple with Huda. They hug it out and they are friendly with each other. So they got to clear the air, which was great because it was needed. Again, this is why I was saying this felt like a Love Island episode. And it may have not had all of the dramatics. We don't need that every single episode. We want to see connections. We want to see the love story. We want to see all of that. Not just the friendships. Those are great, but we want to see the love stories unfold too, especially if we, the viewers, are going to participate in voting on who gets that 100K. So we didn't really see Nick and Olandria. I know, I need to give it up. We didn't see them interact much except for during the challenge when Nick chose her as his wing woman. And I guess this is done on purpose for their storyline, right? Because perhaps the producers want Ciara and Nick to be one of the final couples. And so we can't have anybody getting in the way of television, of making great TV. Now, the episode that's coming up, right? Because we had After Sun, that's episode 29. And then episode 30, which is airing on Sunday night, there will be a recoupling. Finally, there should have been a recoupling several episodes ago. There will be a recoupling. Somebody will be sent home. How many people? Because we have quite a few single islanders. Again, we are about a week away from the finale. So how many folk are y'all sending home, Love Island? We want to know. Also, the veteran watchers have been talking about movie night. When is movie night? Are we getting it? Y'all know. Oh man, I want it. Only because I just want the last glimpse of Nick Olandria. I know it's not happening. I know. I've gotten off the Delulu train. And, they can just be really great friends with each other, because you can't tell me Nick don't care about O. Because he does. So anyway, there will be a recoupling. Somebody is going home. Oh, I did watch After Sun. And Ariana said that, so she also mentioned the recoupling. And she mentioned that, guess who's coming to visit? The family of the Islanders. They will be in Fiji, not online, no text message. They are going to be there in person. Do you think Nick's mom is going to tell him what she really thinks? Because, she's one of the people that was also rooting for Nick Olandria. Is she going to tell him what she thinks and what America thinks of the two of them together? Who knows? But I am here for it, here for it, here for it. And maybe that's why they're not doing movie night. Also, as I watch previous seasons and I see what some of the veteran watchers talk about, And they mention the different dates and, outside of the villa, and challenges where the islanders actually get to know each other, not just kiss, which this season, come on, you need more challenges where they can actually build with one another, and more dates. And I'm like, did Love Island blow their entire budget on Meg when Meg the Stallion came? Did they blow their entire budget on Meg? I think they did. Because these islanders absolutely deserve more dates and better challenges. Hopefully, they do better during the next season, even though there are a number of the islanders who I'm rooting for. This season was still kind of raggedy. So much is shifting with the recoupling and a dumping and all of the things. Who do you think is staying? Who do you think is coupling up? Who do you think is leaving? And what do you think about Huda's redemption arc? Do we trust it? Okay, drop your thoughts in the comments. Remember to turn on your notifications, like, share, subscribe, so that you can get more pop culture breakdowns from me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you for being here. And as always, bye for now.